Hi, this is our Excusa and this is my YouTube channel AI Powered Business. I would love to welcome you today in my next episode, which is about stopping companies from implementing your consulting insight and recommendations. I would like to elaborate a little bit on something I noticed during all my projects. So the most important part of any consulting task I noticed and I delivered was to help customers to execute afterwards. There is a trap in the consulting business that it's called PowerPoint trap. It's relatively easy. It's always a lot of work, but it's relatively easy to get a deck with recommendations and share that deck with customers. And obviously you need to collaborate, you need to conduct a lot of research, brainstorming, workshops, and a lot of materials needs to be crafted by a consultant if you want to develop the compelling and comprehensive strategy deck or recommendations list. But that's like maybe 30% of the job that the consulting should deliver. The most important part for a customer is how to execute afterwards. And today I want to share with you 4 elements I would love to recommend considering when doing a job for your customers. Let's assume you were working for 5-6 months with a customer to build a strategy, and at the end you uncovered 4 or 5 trends that this customer needs to leverage to enter and to enter to the market with the AI powered product. And one of the elements you delivered is a whole bunch of the big list of tasks the customer needs to conduct to execute that particular strategy. For instance, one of the tasks may be building the compelling presentation and testing that value proposition with 5 customers. That's one task. The second task could be build a framework which will ensure that the effort will be scalable. That's the second task you recommend to conduct. And the third one would be to extend the service and deliver return of investment consulting, because the trends show that this is a gap that customers find hard to overcome. So, and you present that to your customer, and the customer is actually overwhelmed with that. They communicate, well, everything what you said is great and we agree on that, but there is no way we know how to execute it, when to execute it, and we don't have FTEs and we don't have time to execute it. And now you just created a huge gap, because after months of analysis and insights and brainstorming, you create a task that needs to be conducted, but the same way there are huge obstacles to deliver that tasks. So what you should do, what I would recommend doing, there are 4 things. First one, after that meeting, when you present these elements, make sure that you write a follow-up email. The follow-up email has one particular goal. The goal is to explain what that means to conduct those tasks, explain what this task should deliver, and ensure these people that if they want, you are ready to help them to conduct this task. This is very important because after the meeting, you leave them with the feeling that there is so much things to do, but if we don't do it, we will not succeed. But at the same time, we don't know how to do it, and we don't have a people that can do it. So sending that email, I would compare to when you buy the car or you buy the house and the seller is checking on you after 2 days if you like it. That email plays that role. The second thing I would love you to do is actually design a roadmap for conducting that tasks. Designing the roadmap doesn't mean you will execute that task for your customers, but it means, and I will use the analogy, that you will slice that elephant and show the single slice by slice, how this particular task can be achieved. Let me give you an example. Let's say customer, as I mentioned before, needs to make sure that they will also provide return of investment consulting and support for their customers. In this particular case, you can tell them how they can find these experts. You can hire them or you can employ them. If you can employ them, you can help them to find places where they can employ them. If you want them to hire them or as a contractors, you might find and call several recruiters and ask them what would be a procedure for actually employing that people. So this could be something you could do for customers. So designing the roadmap means that you help them to see how to move from point A to B. That's the point. That's the second point. It still doesn't solve the issue, but it shows the path how it can be achieved. Point number 3 is, as a consultant, and this is very critical, you believe what you designed. Whenever strategy you designed, you believed in that. I assume that. So the best way to show that your commitment is to actually help to execute that. And to execute that means that whatever you build on the roadmap, you are either happy to execute by yourself or hire contractors. And that's the very critical point, because you can be unbelievably valuable for your customer if you present the roadmap and you will fill that talent gap. You might say, I'm not great in calculating our return of investment, but I know a person and I am happy to organize the call that I can introduce that person to you, so you can have a feeling if you want to hire that person. Or if that's something like wireframing or building app sketching, you might actually hire somebody and invest in that relationship. You probably will buy like 16 hours of somebody's job, but you will come back to your customer and say that particular point on your roadmap is actually doable. So that's the second element. That's a third element you might do. And fourth element is very important for building a trust. Always answer follow-up questions very quickly. What I mean by that? Let's say you deliver that presentation with those tasks I mentioned before to management of your customer, and after that they deliver a lot of questions. I would strictly recommend never ignore that questions, even if you cannot answer them. It's very critical, because you don't want, I assume, to be a consultant that hits and run. That means that you build a strategy, you wait paid, the customer paid you well, as you agreed, nobody get you a complaint, and then you might say, hey, those questions were not part of the scope, or I don't know how to answer because I don't specialize in that part, in that areas you asked about. Always answer those questions. If you don't know how to answer them, and there will be questions if you leave a customer with hard tasks to execute, always mention that, hey, I don't know how to answer those questions, but I will find out if I can answer them. If not, I will be very honest with you that I cannot be helpful here. Those 4 elements will make sure that the customer put trust in you, and they will be open for extending collaboration with you. That might be one particular situation you don't want. You might say, I'm a strategy consultant, but I don't execute the strategy I built. And in this particular case, I would recommend to be very clear at the beginning of the project before you even start. The reason for that is that, as I mentioned before, by recommending conducting a big task that the customer doesn't know how to conduct or doesn't have time to conduct, you will leave a lot of sour in that relationship. So if you know from very beginning you are not going to help to execute on the specific task, please mention that before. So you will manage that expectations that after building a strategy, your job is done and the customer needs to look for the help by themselves. If you mention that before, your relationship is going to be very, very great, very profound, very meaningful. If you don't mention that before, and that big task, that difficult task shows up as your recommendation, your trust level will decrease significantly, which is, I believe, something you might not want. So that would be my 4 elements in case you recommend something that customer cannot execute, but to conduct the strategy you build, it's critical to be done. And trust me that after projects I've delivered, this thing always resolved with the following elements. First, the customer will offer you more job because they understand that you're very transparent and never will leave them alone. Second, the customer always will pay invoices, will settle the invoices on time, because there is a trust between you and a company, and you become the integral part of the company, building the company strategy and helping executing that. And the third thing that always happens, that customer will always write you a recommendation letter and will always make that extra effort, like for instance calling other customers to meet with you and offer you a job. So I hope this is going to help you to thrive your consulting business and make your customers more happy with your service. Thank you for being here with me, and have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.